Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Saturday where we have a nor'easter offshore, and it is producing some gusty wind conditions right along the immediate south shore of Long Island. You can see wind gusts here at midday running 20 to just under 30 knots. I'm sure there's probably here's a 30-knot gust. And offshore, they're gusting to 30 to 40 knots. We do have gale warnings up for the coastal waters. Some of the rain actually made it to right along the south shore, and it was a sharp cutoff. You can see a few radar echoes are still sitting over parts of Hampton Bays from about West Hampton on up through Southampton, and then touching areas heading out toward Montauk. They're just kind of on the edge here of lighter rain, but it actually rained rather hard over some coastal areas along the south shore this morning, while just literally a handful of miles inland there wasn't a drop of rain. And of course, that northeast wind behind on the backside of this developing low to the south, bringing temperatures down. We're in the middle 60s at the moment. I'm going to switch off to the New Jersey coast where there were some gusty winds, and we've got still some winds running, and they're going to continue it through this afternoon. 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts, sustained winds 25. Really, for this time of year, this is pretty unusual. And temperatures also in the 60s all the way down into South Jersey. And in fact, in the southern counties in New Jersey, there were 2, 3, 4-inch rainfall amounts with some flash flooding. You see some gusts as you head down toward Cape May, gusts to 37. So it's pretty windy down in this neck of the woods. And this buoy out in Delaware Bay reporting gusts to 40. Just take it a little further down the coast in the coastal Delaware, some gusts of 35, sustained winds of 30 knots. So it's pretty windy. Here's an offshore buoy with a wind of 35 knots with gusts to 40. But you know, the radar echoes are all done as low pressure moves away to the northeast. And I'm going to switch over. We'll move on northwest, where there was some heavy rains throughout much of south central Maryland. North central Maryland into south central Pennsylvania. We still have some radar echoes to contend with here. This is all part of the upper air system that is shifting eastward. So there still could be some heavier downpours, and there still could be some flash flooding. But when we move up a little further north in Pennsylvania toward Allentown and Scranton, a little on the breezy side, but as far as at least the radar is concerned, it's pretty quiet. Here's a visible satellite loop that you can actually see. Skies have gone partly sunny. This is drier air coming down from upstate New York and southeastern Canada. This is the reflection of the upper air system that's producing those remaining echoes that you saw on the radar. And of course, we have what's offshore with the developing low that's moving out to the northeast. And on the eastern satellite loop, I'm going to use these colorized enhanced loops here today. You see the higher and colder cloud tops. It's a pretty potent little system that's moving out to the northeast. Now, it's funny because if you go back to a couple of days ago when weather models tried to take this surface low from the Delaware coast to just south of Long Island, I mean, if that had happened, it would have been an absolute wipeout for the day here. With rain, and we would probably be seeing winds every bit of 30 to 40 knots with higher gusts. But the track means everything, of course, with the surface low going more east-northeast. That makes a huge difference. And of course, you've got this drier air to the north that's going to filter down on the backside. Here's the remnant upper low that is going to swing around and weaken and then pull out to the northeast. To the south, the weather front with this is actually moved pretty far south, so you can see some higher and colder cloud tops moving across the central Gulf states, and that's reflected by a busy radar today. And then, kind of arcs back around as you get into the border between relatively cooler air over the Midwest and the hot air that is still in the west of that boundary zone, producing some showers and some thunderstorms. And out in the west, in fact, you can see it from this side view, up the Rockies with these higher cloud tops and moisture shooting northward. You can see also the top end of Hillary, the tropical system in the Pacific, which I'll do a bit more with that later. And right along the immediate west coast, weather conditions are pretty good. So here's the wide national radar I'm going to just freshen it up a little bit here. And the rain from the coastal low has moved away to the northeast, so there really isn't too much happening in between that and the remnant upper system that's producing some showers back. It looks like most of those showers now have trailed their way back down into West Virginia and southwestern Pennsylvania, and they should be diminishing as we go through the day. You've got the trailing front producing showers and thunderstorms from coastal North Carolina right across the central Gulf states. This is pretty unusual to see a weather front this far south at this point in the summer. But with the development of a non-tropical low here, cold core low, the atmosphere is just a bit out of whack. And out in the west, you can you see the scattered showers and thunderstorms that are going on in the Rockies all the way up into Montana, while the west coast remains very quiet. So let's take this forward to see how we're going to do with what we're going to do with this in the long term. And we've been all, on this theme of troughing in the east and ridging in the west. And let me bring it up to today, if it will let me. Oh no, I got the picture stuck. Okay, now let me unstuck it. And all right, so here's our initial position with the troughing that's going on in the east. You've got this strong low up in southeastern Canada. And one of the things I'm noticing here, by the way, is the fact that this was actually forecast to be a little bit further to the northeast than it actually was. And that's probably the reason why this weather system stayed weaker and more suppressed. So there were battles during the week with the models trying to have this get out of the way far enough to allow room for this weather system to go basically hog wild in the eastern part of the U.S., but that did not happen. You've got an upper low, an upper air storm sitting in the Gulf of Alaska off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, and that's kind of pulled the jet down a little bit further south in the ocean and moving it southwestward into southwestern Canada. Here's your western ridge, kind of a snaky looking flat ridge there. Here's your Atlantic ridge. And of course, you've got that trough in the middle that goes pretty far south with westerly winds in the upper atmosphere all the way down into northern Florida. So as we move ahead, that slowly pulls out. So we're going to be fine here in the northeast through a good chunk of this week. And we will actually start to warm up back up to average and above on Tuesday, when we should start seeing some 90-degree temperatures. But notice there's this gentle troughing in the jet stream through the middle and latter part of this week. Nothing especially strong, but it's probably enough to bring down the next weather front. And of course, you've got this big ridge popping up in the west. Now, the models next weekend trying to bring down a deeper trough. It's actually not as deep as it was in prior runs, but it actually is bringing down a fairly significant upper shortwave trough that it gradually swings along into the northeast. Again, pretty much the same pattern we've been in. And then another one follows for, now we're at August 11th, and then that pulls out. And again, the GFS, after doing several runs of trying to show ridging across the country, now has a trough in here for the same time frame. So you have to kind of wonder again about this. The ridge has wanted to stay in the west and the trough in the east. Now, toward the end of the period, you've got the same notion, the Atlantic ridge trying to build, the Pacific ridge on the Pacific side, sort of this elongated east-west ridge that runs across the country. But, it's kind of backed away somewhat from what it was showing the last couple of days during the latter part of the long-range period. So I'm going to just kind of watch it and see where it goes. But at least from the standpoint of through the beginning parts of August, we're going to be in the same general pattern that we have been in. So let's widen out and show you the full U.S. surface view here. Go back to day 1, which is today, and this was from overnight at 2 a.m. Low pressure moves offshore. Of course, we're now almost to early afternoon here, so this was the GFS forecast for early this afternoon. That pulls out. High pressure builds in. The air behind the low is going to be cool and relatively dry, and then it starts to warm up as we get into Tuesday and into Wednesday and Thursday. I'm sure we're going to probably see temperatures close to 90 in some spots or in our area here on Tuesday, and into the upper 80s and low 90s for Wednesday and Thursday. Start to put in the possibility maybe of some scattered thunderstorms. Here's the later Thursday. And here's our cold front. And by the way, here's the old frontal zone that's going to be stalled out from behind this coastal low that's going out today. And there's probably going to be some kind of a wave that's going to develop on that frontal zone and move on out to the northeast. Sometimes those the setups like these in August and September have to be watched because the water temperatures are very warm. So sometimes you can get a frontal wave to develop that winds up gradually becoming a tropical system as it moves away to the northeast. And you see the reflection of the surface low once it's way out, but sometimes that does happen. And this front is forecast to get hung up because that trough is going to stretch out again like this one does. So it introduces chances for showers and storms all through next weekend until that low pulls away, and then we get another high sliding in. Here's another front as we are now into August 9th and 10th that makes it down. So you're going to get, the pattern has been to get these 3-day stretches, 2-3-day stretches of very warm to hot, humid weather. That's going to continue. I don't see that breaking down, at least during the next 10 days to perhaps a bit longer, and maybe throughout how it plays. And of course, in the West, you are still dealing with the same story with the hot weather and summertime and diurnal showers and thunderstorms that develop in the Rockies. The weather fronts that are moving down continue to produce occasional rounds of severe weather across the upper Midwest, and I don't think that's going to change too much. And you've got various other little shortwave troughs that move down and produce showers and thunderstorms elsewhere. So getting ready to move into the dog days of August for some parts of the United States. It really has not been that hot in the east. It might be above average in a lot of places, but only by not by much. Some places a little bit more, some a little less. It's particularly noticeable in the southern part of the southeastern part of the U.S., where we haven't seen any especially hot temperatures. We haven't seen long runs of 95 to 100 degree readings. It's just not happening with the ridge in the western part of the U.S. and as opposed to being here in the east. Now let's look at the tropics, where we have some development here with a weak tropical wave that's coming out. Very little development, I should say. It's moving westward. Hurricane Center is rating this a 20% chance of tropical storm development over the next 5 days. Otherwise, the rest of the tropical Atlantic is on the quiet side. And when we look at the water vapor imagery here, a lot of dry air in the Atlantic continues. And here are your tropical waves trying to come out there, but there's a lot of dry air north of 15 degrees north. You still have this upper low in the middle of the Atlantic, but it is a bit weaker than what it was earlier this week. So maybe that's starting to relax a little bit, but you still have wind shear conditions across much of the tropical Atlantic that are going to hinder development, and really not too much here that says it's favorable as you go out further west into the Atlantic and into the Gulf of Mexico. So that takes care of the Atlantic side, and we will jump now to the Pacific side, where we have Hillary and Irwin. They're very close to each other, and they're basically interacting with each other. You're getting some wind shear conditions that are moving over Irwin, and that's causing that to get sheared apart for some degree. But this is in the Pacific graveyard. Both these storms will disappear in short order. And then, well, there might be another disturbance behind it, but as usual with these Pacific storms, they just develop and move out and die out with not much real impact. So there you have it. We'll leave it at that. We're gonna go to a live chat now, and I will be more than happy to take your questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions, whatever. It's a free open forum. So go ahead and just post your questions and thoughts, and I will. So go ahead and just post your questions and thoughts, and I will. I think I'm up there. So go ahead and just post your questions and thoughts, and I will. Stream on delay. So hang on 1 second. I think I'm up there. Okay. It's often confusing for me because I'm switching sources back and forth here, trying to do the weather stuff and then switch over to a live shot of me. So I think you're hearing me, which is good. So let me just go back to a couple of comments. So Chris Pawelski, I hope I said that right, Pawelski. You subscribe to my weather app, and you're trying to convince your fellow farmers to do the same, and I appreciate that. Best 99 cents you'll ever spend. Okay, I had to do like a shameless self-promotion and all of this. So if you want to download my app and subscribe to my forecast, you can find it on my website. You can link from there to Google Play or iTunes. It's $1 a month for New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, and Eastern Pennsylvania. And thanks, Chris, for giving me the chance to do that shameless plug. And the videos are going to be coming. I'm having a lot of fun doing these chats and doing these the weather streams, and then coming back and talking to you guys. Axis 2084. We're supposed to heat up here in the Northeast for the first half of the week, from what I've seen. Yeah, you know, we're going to warm up once this low pulls out offshore. Temperatures are going to go back. This time of year, with the sun still pretty strong, we're deep in the middle of summer. When you get situations like this, once the clouds pull out, the spring just springs right back very, very quickly. So we'll be in the 70s tomorrow because of the northeast wind, but we should be back up into the 80s on Monday, and some places will be up close to 90 on Tuesday. The humidity is going to be coming up, but you probably won't notice it too much until Tuesday. And Chris, you were asking me about long-range forecasts, and I've said it a few times. It's not my thing anymore. I've tried to do them. I really can't get my head around them. But one thing I will say, and if you're weather, if you're doing something that's you're working very closely with weather conditions on a day-to-day basis, and they're very important. You'll notice that over the course of whatever season that we're in, that weather patterns don't exactly repeat themselves, but they do tend to rhyme. Okay, and if you can pick up on what the pattern is early enough, it will help you along going forward. Just a couple of examples. We had the 3 days of 90-degree temperatures in May. The rest of the time it was below average. June, we had mid-June, we had a spurt of 3 days of 90-degree plus temperatures, and the rest of the time it was either average or a little bit below average. And so far in July, that pattern's played out again. So if you can recognize a weather pattern when you get into a season early enough, you can figure things out as to where they may be going longer term. Another way to look at that would be, say, in South Jersey in particular, has been a target zone for heavy rains for the last couple of months, and it's been repetitive. So if you catch on to that, I'm a firm believer in the trend is your friend type of forecasting tool. You stick with what's working until it stops working. And I think that's a good way of looking at how how a season is going to play out. Last winter, it was became obvious when we kept getting these bursts of snowstorms coming after we saw record high temperatures, which was it happened 3 times last winter. So you kind of can use your own instincts to figure out where the weather is going. As far as specifics in terms of the technicals, there's just too much to look at, and I've never been able to get my head around it. So that's why, Louis, you mentioned, we're at a negative QBO, causing the this unusual summer so far. And you know what? See, that's one of those technical things in the long range that long range people follow, the QBO. If you know what, at the top of my head, I don't even remember what that stands for. Quasi something or another. If somebody knows, please post it. There's too much of this stuff to keep in my brain, and I can't do it. So I stick to what I think I'm good at, and that's the short range, and I leave the long range people to do the long range stuff. It's too much for me. Let's see. Do I think the front will stall out in the next week or two? Well, late this week, Christopher, there's a weather front that is going to be, heading to the coast and getting hung up again, because another one of these troughs is going to stretch out like this one did and stall out along the East Coast. So at least that's what the GFS and the European were both hinting at last night and this morning. So that is certainly a consideration. And Carina Rivera, Gulf states will cool off by next week. Very unusual to see a cold front down almost to the Gulf Coast in the latter part of July. Usually you have to wait till the end of September before you get the first front to come close and move through, and sometimes even later than that. But as a result of the low developing off the East Coast, the cold front is being forced all the way down to the south, and that's bringing down dry air into places that normally don't get much in the way of dry air during the middle of summer. And it's also bringing some east-west extensive downpours and thunderstorms today across the central Gulf Coast. So, very interesting to see how one thing, the impact that one weather system in one part of the country can have on weather and climate in other areas, and how it plays out so differently. So pretty fascinating with this nor'easter that's offshore. I'm going to take a ride down to the South Shore a little bit later on just to check out what's happening. All right, Thomas Bullock, weak El Nino this winter. Okay, see, this is what I mean. We're already focused 6 months from now, guys. Let's get through the summer. Right now, there's no El Nino, there's no La Nina. We're kind of in sort of a normal, mode atmospherically, and also as far as the ocean is concerned and ocean water temperatures. So let's see how this all plays out in the coming weeks. I'm sure we're going to start to see the Atlantic side rev up, if not out in the tropical Atlantic, perhaps closer to the southwestern Atlantic, off the East Coast, perhaps in the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Caribbean. Rather than have systems develop way out in the Atlantic Ocean, because that big upper low is still out there creating shear conditions, and that just has to get out of the way. Otherwise, these tropical waves are not going to have a chance until they get west of 60. And by the way, there have been many, many seasons where that has indeed been the case. There's been stretches. There was a stretch in the 70s where there was no tropical storm development whatsoever in the eastern Atlantic during the Cabo Verde season. So that would not be at all unusual. All right, folks, like we could sit here. I could sit here all day and chat, which I'd like to do, but I got stuff to do, and I'm sure you guys, you have stuff to do as well, and you have a whole Saturday afternoon ahead of you. So do enjoy it, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will be back with more, of course. We'll check out the weather again, probably around this time tomorrow. And we'll see where it goes for the coming weeks. And in the meantime, these summer weekends are winding down. We're at the end of July. August is the last month, the third and final month of meteorological summer. And before you know it, that will come and go, and we'll be into September and fall and thinking about Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas. It goes very, very quick. So you got 5 or 6 weekends left. Make sure you take advantage of it, especially on the days that the weather is nice. And if it's not for the first half, hopefully for the second half of the weekend, which I think is going to be better here on Sunday, certainly better than it is today. So ta-ta to Jason Schaefer. Everyone, again, have a great rest of your Saturday, and we will talk to you very, very soon.